Get your what? Oh, that's it. You got to have the whole thing, huh? Stretch out. So you can absorb the maximum amount of terminal goodness. Yeah. All right. So, we should do this. Ta-da. All right. So let's dive in. So managing users and groups. We've talked about, I even added last week a Betty user into my server back here. You can see that down at the bottom. You see Leo and then Betty underneath. So we're going to talk about some of that today. If you want to add a user, the most simple way to do so is user add. That is the way you add users. Now, if you were paying close enough attention last week, you'll notice I didn't do user add, I did add user. So they're mostly the same. User add is the manual way to do it. When you're wanting to specify all of the different options and everything for a new user, you'll want to use user add. As well as add user is a Debian thing for the most part. So Ubuntu will have it, Mint will have it, Debian itself will have it, but not all distributions will have it. So user add is more universal. So if you want the one that works everywhere, it's this one we're covering now. So remember that. If you accidentally use add user, not a big deal. If I'm asking you to use user add, then obviously use it. So, but in the real world, I don't really guess it'll matter, to be honest with you. It gets added the same as everything else, so no big deal. Now, how do you figure out what user add is going to do? That will show you the defaults. User add dash big D will show you the defaults, right? Your home folder lives in home. Your shell is going to be bin/sh. A lot of the options that are going to come for your user are living in that skell. So etsy skell, short for skeleton, as in the skeleton of your user. And then, do you create mail anymore? No. Just some facts about some of this stuff. Now, if you want to change it, if you want to change what the defaults are, then you'll do the same thing, user add D, and then you'll just start adding options as you would if you were creating a user. But let's not worry too much about that at the moment. Just that first thing that popped up, first thing we looked at, this is how you change them if you want to change them. So everything that you would do normally. If you add that dash D option, you'll be changing the defaults. So that's what it'll be next time you create a user without adding in any of the options here. So let's talk about these options. So this is what a typical command might look like. This is going to add a user. It's going to do a bunch of stuff. It's going to add some. It's going to specify the user ID. It's going to add you to the specific groups. But let's just look. What does im do? So I do sudo user add dash im. What's it going to do? Create what? Not in this case. Man user add would do that. So dash im, I heard it over here. Yeah. It's going to create a home directory. And if we did, again, where is it going to create that home directory? User add dash big D is just the defaults. Looking at the output down there? /home. So this dash D is not actually necessary, but what does dash D do? Not in this case. Little d is different. So read that a little bit. Not out loud or whatever, just like home directory of the new account. What do you think that means? So im creates it, and then D, it expects a value here where it says home dir. So it says D, comma, dash dash home dir. So those two things are, you can either use dash D or you can type out dash dash home dash dir. I'm a fan of typing less, so I do dash D. But there's another value to the right-hand side of that. All in caps says home underscore dir. So it's expecting something. It wants me to specify what I mean by home directory. So what would I type there? More than that, it's looking for a directory. So it's looking for a path. There we go. So if you wanted to type it that way, you could. And in this case, home Emma is kind of redundant because it's already going to create it in home. It's already going to use the username that you create at the back of this here to decide what that username or what that directory is going to be, the name of it. So that's kind of redundant. So if you wanted home to be somewhere else, like in new home or something, I don't know, you created a directory called new home and you want everybody to move over there and you want to create all the user accounts over there. If you didn't change the defaults, you can set it like this. So create a home directory. Here's where I want that home directory to be. There. -u. What is -u? What's that? Not user group, user ID. Yeah, so the uppercase, lowercase matters a lot. So in this case, user ID, I'm specifying the user ID. So what that means is, if we look in this file, you can see every user has an ID. It's that leftmost number. So if you look at the very bottom of that, you see Leo and Betty. Leo is user ID 1000. Betty is user ID 1001. If I leave it as default, what is the next user going to be? 1002. Just keeps counting. Starts at 1000, keeps going up until you run out. You don't get to reuse user IDs unless you force it. So if you create Betty and then delete Betty later on, 1001 doesn't free up. You just use 1002, 1003. Yep. It just keeps going down the list. So in this case, what am I specifying here? Yep, the user ID for this user is going to be 1111. Now, without even looking, what do you think that G means? Big G. So, group. So you're adding a group association. You want Emma to be part of the NetAdmins group. So let's go look and see what it looks like over here. Big G, groups. List of supplementary groups of the new account. So this is additional groups. So you're already going to be part of the Emma group because Emma is Emma and Emma goes in the Emma group. Any groups you want to add after this, you just add them. NetAdmin. So she'll be part of the groups Emma and NetAdmins after we create her. What does that look like? Ooh, nice. Shell. So -S is shell. Personally, I have started to get used to dealing with another shell called bash. So it's like I forget what it, or I said bash, no, that's a fish. Friendly interactive shell. So I was telling you guys about command complete or like tab complete and all that. Fish does it without even asking. You start typing it and it wants to fill out the rest of it. You know how you do in a Google search and you type in like P and it's like pizza, like that, right? That's how Fish works. So it's really, really cool. And the way that you would change that, if you were creating a user, say you wanted to create a user and you want them to have Fish, you would just type in, I think Fish lives in user bin. So it would look like that. As far as I know, it's only available. Well, actually, it's available everywhere. That's not
something you see out on the job.
Nah, you wouldn't just install this on servers. You would use it on your own machine, and then log into servers with it, and then you would have that shell available to you over SSH or something like that. So yeah, you don't stop using it, but let me see. Wow, you can use it in Mac. Ooh, there are like 2 Mac people in the first semester I'll get to tell this about. So you go to Linux, and then pick your distro, whatever that is. OpenSUSE is there, CentOS is there, Ubuntu is there. So everything that y'all would want to use it on, it's there. I don't recommend using it to study for a test or anything, but it is really useful. Super duper useful. So if y'all want to see it at the end of this, I'll install it for you, and we can see what it looks like. What's that? Oh yeah, I mean you type in a couple letters, or once you get to the point where you're typing in a command or whatever, it gives you all the options that you've used in the past. And then tab complete not only gives you the options and everything, but it in a very concise way it describes each option that you might use. So it's super useful. I'll show you what it looks like here in a little bit. But oh man, but don't learn Bash first. Because there are going to be situations where you'll only have Bash, and if you don't learn some of the paradigm, like how tab works in Bash, then Fish is going to be a crutch for you and it's going to hurt later. So you learn Fish second, and then learn to love Fish, and then never use anything else. Totally get it. But you want to get that Bash muscle memory going first. Anyway, so that's how you would change it. If you wanted to do that, it would be under user bin Fish, and then that would be anytime someone logged in, they wouldn't get Bash like this. It would be Fish, which looks a little bit different. And it adds a lot of color to it, too, so that's nice. All right. So long story short, if we ran this minus this part, because I don't have actually, you know what? Might as well cover it, because I wanted to show you guys group add. So let's just go ahead and add so what does group add do? It adds a group. It's pretty self-explanatory, I would hope. G3333. What is this? It's close. Group ID. Yeah. Every group has an ID as well, so you can check it out by doing. And I always forget if it's group or groups. I'm just gonna go group. It's group. Yay. So if you look, this is the list of your group. Look up toward the middle of that. You see plug dev, and then almost at the very top of that, you see sudo. So at the end of each of those lines, you can see who is actually associated to these groups. So Leo and Betty are in the sudo group, which means that Leo and Betty can use sudo. They can do admin things. So if we create sudo group add G3333 net admins. Oh, I can't spell. There we go. Did it work? How do I check? It didn't yell at me, so I would assume it's good. How would I check? I did. So if I just keep hitting up, you'll find it. So the file that contains the list of all the groups and associations is etc group. And then it's technically catnate, but however you want to remember, it doesn't matter. It's a Latin word and nobody uses it, so whatever. Same as users. Yep. Typically the group, the user ID matches the group ID. So notice that under the Leo group down there, it's 1000 as well. And Betty is 1001. Now, if you start messing around with the user IDs and specifying, like if I specify that I want Betty to be, Emma to be 1003, and then delete her and then create 2 more users, now the user ID and group IDs are going to be broken. Well, they're not going to be exactly the same. So you got to be careful with that at a certain point. And the only way to really fix that is to use up a group, just like I'm creating a test group so I can mess with the numbers or whatever, and then delete that group, and then at that point it'll start flowing again. But unless you have a really good idea of why you want to create a specific user ID, then don't. Let the system handle it. Now, when you start dealing with things like LDAP, where you have this centralized login, there's one server out there that contains your username and password and all that, then, okay, you can start playing with user ID and group ID numbers. But, yeah, at that point, you'd be able to explain to me why you would want a specific number. So, yeah. Try not to mess with it unless you know why, or I'm specifically asking you to do it. All right, so we have this group. It is group ID 3333. You can double check that there in the etc groups file. Now we can go back up and run this command. So sudo user add md home Emma u. Oh.
What does add group do?
Is there an add group? There may or may not be. I don't use it, so I'm not familiar with it. Hang on, we'll look at it.
Just assuming group
Maybe. So this command, sudo user add, so we're adding a user, -m, so we're creating a home file, -d, or a home directory, -d, we're specifying what we want it to be, -u1111 is, I want it to be user ID 1111, -g, netadmin says I want Emma to be in that group upon creation, -s, bin bash is, I want her to have that shell, right? So we're specifying a lot. We're creating a lot in this particular thing. And there she is. Done. So we can cat etc password, pass wd to verify Emma. There it is. 1111. Her group ID is 1111. Home Emma bin bash. The only thing it doesn't have is that geckos field, which is really old Unix field that basically was for comments, but we're using it now for full name and like other values. Like notice under Betty White, there's that 111, which is her room number. 324-234-2344 is her phone number, right? I mean, you don't need to know this. The geckos is just a comment section, really, but we've been using it in the past few years for things like this. So you can put whatever you want to in it, right? Don't put anything that you don't want them to know. Yeah. No name calling in the comments. But you can if you want to, and you can do that with this -c. Right? We can go back in and do that. So let's get through here real quick. But you said you wanted to see add user works. Add group is a thing.
So add group does it automatically. Was that the distinction between?
Oh, add group is actually part of add user. And all you would really get to do, add group -- system will add a system group and add, no, that's it. So to be honest, there's really not much benefit to doing add group versus group add. So honestly, remember group add because that exists everywhere. Add group may just exist in Debian systems, same as add user. So you got to be careful with that. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so we talked about that. If you want to change the defaults, just use capital D and then the options as normal. Nothing will happen to any of your existing users, but new users will now have that default. So if this is the case, no user will ever be able to log in. You give people a shell like this if you don't want them to log in. And so typically you won't give people a shell like this. You'll give service accounts a shell like this. So contrary to the way that Windows works, everything is run from the admin account in Windows or the NT Authority account, which is like the ultimate authority, root. But you can't log into NT Authority unless you hack the box. So in Linux, however, every service gets an account, right? I mean, notice some of those users that we had. News, UUCP, proxy, www data, backup, list, IRC, NATS, nobody, systemd network, systemd resolve, syslog, everything. Syslog is a service. It is a piece of software that logs everything on the system, hence syslog, right? And there's a user for it. And notice, so syslog is user ID 102. You might be able to use that to find it. Underneath systemd resolve, above message bus. So look at syslog. Its home folder is home syslog, but its shell is what? User sbin no login. So even if you wanted to, you can't log in as syslog. That's the point. You have a user that is invoked by root or something that does stuff, but you can put syslog into the correct groups to have access to the things that it needs, right? Or you can give it permission. You can let it own the etc syslog directory or something like that, so it can just create files or etc var or what is it varlog think it is. Yeah, notice auth.log, third file down. Who's it owned by? Syslog. Look at kern.log, about a little lower than midway down. Who's it owned by? Yep. And then the syslog file, almost all the way to the bottom. Syslog. Yep. Yeah, ADM is a really old group that was created early on in Unix that basically meant admin and basically allowed you to do logging. So, yeah. Admin's not a thing in Linux. We just happened to use ADM to help us out with logging. So it gave... You could rename ADM to anything else, is what I'm getting at. It's not the name that matters here. It's the fact that it's associated to that group. So let me look at... Remind me. I'm looking in the Etsy group file, but I only want to see things that have to do with the ADM name. How do I do that? I don't want the whole group file. I just want lines that have ADM in it. grep. Find will work, but find will require a little bit longer for me to actually type that out. So grep, not group, grep. What? ADM. Who is in ADM? What's that? Emma is not in ADM. Look closer. Don't focus on just the red. Focus on the whole line. Who is in the ADM group?
I guess ADM is the rest of it.
ADM is just any time the letters A, D, and M occurred. But if you look at that bottom line, ADM is more than just ADM. To the left of it is net, and to the right of it is ins, so net admins, right? ADM just happened to show up in that. Oh, I see.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know there was red, so I said it.
Yeah. Fish might help with this, because Fish does different coloring. So, yeah, that very first line says ADM colon, and then the rest of it is in white. So who's in the ADM group? Syslog and Leo. So the important part about ADM is that if you want someone to be able to go in and actually touch logs, see them, view them, you would want to put them in the ADM group. That's the idea with all of that. And in this case, we could, change the ownership, group ownership of that to net admins, and now Emma can read those things, right? Or a smarter way to do that would just add Emma to the ADM group. That'd be the easier way. And then Emma can do all the things that, or look at all the things that ADM can look at. So that is important. Knowing that there are service accounts out there is important, which would explain why you would want to do this, or why this even exists. So let's say we fire Emma. Sorry, Emma. We need to get rid of you, user del. You typically, in general, don't want to delete a user. Let's say that we misspelled Emma's name. That would be a time where we would want to delete a user. So typically you'll just want to disable a user account, lock the account. That way you have all the ammo you might need for, what if we fired her for doing bad things on the network or whatever. Deleting the account might delete some of the evidence of what she has done, but locking the account prevents her from using the account anymore, but still preserves all the associations that it has with it. So typically you don't want to delete anything. Userdel is for mistakes, not for firings. That's what lock is for. So let's say you want to do more stuff than what user add is capable of doing, or you want to add stuff after the fact. You can't just go and add another username to Emma and then that will just append to Emma's user. You have to modify the user, and you do that by user mod. So you might remember this one, because I told you guys a lab or two ago to add someone to a group, right? This may or may not be familiar from that. So if I'm doing, let's do this. So user mod -C, Emma Jackson. So let's look at that. User mod dash dash help. What's a dash C? Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. You can put any comment you want to in there, but typically that's where full name goes, right? If you want someone to be referred to by their full name as a user, you don't set the username to that because usernames don't like spaces. Dashes are okay, but that just becomes really hard to type. Dots are cool too, I guess, but stick to easiness. Easy is better. Anyway, so comment. So if we sudo usermod -c Emma Jackson, that'll add Emma Jackson to the Geckos field, which will essentially be the comment. Yep, just a comment. That's all it is. So what's dash E? And I got a date here. Expires. So what's going to happen to Emma on December 12th? Or I'm sorry, December 31st of 2020. She will lock. Yep. Oh, come on, mouse. There you are. Now we're looking at this. So dash little a dash big G. All right. So what's little a in the first place? Let's start with there. Append. So append the user to supplemental groups. Kind of what we did before. She was in NetAdmins before.
So you add her to groups without taking her out of groups.
Right. And then dash big G is like it was before, just groups. So if you don't add the dash little a, you will remove all current group associations and replace it with the one you say. So dash little a is super important when you're coming up to situations like this where you want to add someone to a group but not remove them out of others. If you don't have dash little a, you blow the whole thing up. And if you don't have a backup of your groups file, well, now you don't know who was part of what.
That reason why is when you type that, you're telling me which groups you want to be in. And it says, okay, these groups, not anything else.
Without the little a, that's what happens. You put them in that group, and that's it. Everything else goes away. They could be in 100 groups, and if you forget the dash little a option, they are now in one group. The group you said. Well, maybe you said two groups. I don't know. Now they're in two groups, whatever. But that's the idea. Any existing group associations are gone. So, dash little a, super important. If you're adding someone to group and you don't have a dash little a, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Anyhow, dash a dash big G, CIO, and then Emma. So I don't have this. Let me give you guys a quick little... What does a hash mark do? Did we talk about that yet? Pretty sure we did, but in passing, I'm sure. Anybody know? Yep, hashtag sudo. So typically in Linux, a hashtag represents a comment, meaning ignore everything after the hash until you get to the next line. And then, all right, I'll start to pay attention again. So what happened? What's that? It didn't scream at me, but if everything after the hash is ignored, then what happened? Nothing. Yep. The reason I do that is you can bring it back, right? I have all this command typed out, and then I remembered that I don't have a CIO group. So that command would have failed, right? No group CIO found, no such group, something like that, right? So what do I got to do? I need the CIO group. Help me fix this.
Add a CIO group.
How do I do it?
Add
And then?
dash C.
Let's do this. Let's do that because, if you're using a command that you're not too familiar with, always ask for help first. So
Dash G. Group ID.
do we need to specify group ID?
No.
So we can totally do that, and I could choose 2222, whatever. That would be fine, and because we did it earlier as well.
Just group add whatever name it is.
So CIO, think it'll work?
I don't know.
Should I try it?
Yes.
Oh. Again, GROUP. There we go. Cool.
Okay.
How do I check? What file? What's the file?
ETC. Yeah.
Does it exist? Show enough. All right. So now I can go back to this guy. The home key is your friend. Put you at the front of the line. The delete key is your friend. It deletes from the left to the right.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Get rid of that hash and right. Get rid of that hash and then run it. Easy peasy, right? Now let's check. So how do I search for just Emma?
Yeah, that's what I was
And
Emma?
oh, oops, I did it backwards. There we go. There. Now Emma is in the CIO group. Cool. So Emma's super important. Chief Information Officer and all. So, yeah. Now we can associate CIO to everything else or put CIO in other groups and blah, 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 right? So, fun stuff. All right. With me up to this point?
So I have a question as far as
I'll catch up.
All right.
Probably by Saturday, but I'll catch up.
What question did you have?
you have, like, say, an accounting group, and you have a sales group of like 1,000 users of each other. Can you make a accounting sales group, and add those groups together so that all 2,000 are one group?
That defeats the purpose.
I know,
But yes.
you just said adding CIO to other groups.
Yeah, yeah.
So I maybe wonder.
You can.
I guess you can.
You can add anything to it. Well, you can add users and groups to groups. Yes.
So is there a reason why you would ever do that? Just
I mean, groups to groups, very rarely could I don't even know that I can think of an example of why I would want to do that. But you can. Just,
send a message to everybody.
uh,
Send a message to
you would just maintain a separate group, to be honest. You would just create an everybody group and then just chuck everybody in there and then, hope for the best whenever you're trying to do system messages. But you can do system messaging, just everybody wouldn't get it until they logged into their terminal. And how many times do you think someone that's working on Excel logs into a terminal? There are ways, other ways to deal with that as well. But yes, to your question, yes. All right. So you guys know this because we've poked it a bunch of times. Etsy password is where all the user groups, the users exist. But we've seen a bunch of this stuff in here and haven't really talked about it much. So take Emma for instance. Let me see. Oh. Yeah. So in the Etsy password file, you only have a few different things. You have, on the left in red, you have Emma. X is where the password used to be. Hence, the password file. All right? This is the file that contained all the passwords. It just happened to contain all the other user information as well. Well, can you see why the Etsy password file is probably not a great idea to just store that? It's not a great idea to store that in there. Right? Let's look at why that is. Look at the permissions on that.
Yeah.
Right. So why would that be dangerous?
your user, you can like change passwords,
You wouldn't be able to change them.
copy them.
So if you notice, look at, so it's root. So the first set of permissions, RW, is the user owner, so root. The second set is the group owner, which is read. And then the last set, what is the last set? Who does that affect? Everyone. And everyone can do what? So everyone can read your password.
Is the password not?
It is, but that's not the point. The point is, even if your password is hashed, and cryptographically secure. If you have physical access to it, you can use the same box that hosts the password to crack the password. So you've got to be real careful with things like this. Now, the other file is this one. This is what we're going to talk about. So let me finish off the very top of that. So Emma X is where the password used to be. 1111, user ID, 1111, group ID. Emma Jackson is the comment. Home Emma is the home directory. Bin bash is the shell. Now,
Why is password visible from everybody? Why is that even a thing?
it's just the list of users. There's not necessarily anything too terribly dangerous about listing the users. It's listing the password that tends to get us in trouble. Because you have to actually be a user on the system with access to the rest of the system to be able to actually read that file. So that means that Emma would be able to read all the users in the file. And if we still stored passwords in there, she'd be able to see the hash too. So that's why we've swapped over to using this Etsy shadow thing. So the X in Etsy password in the password spot really just says there is a password, but it's not here. Etsy shadow is where that password lives, as well as a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of other information. So you can see the Etsy shadow file is owned by root, group owned by shadow. So let's look at it. Who's in the shadow group? Nobody. Right. So the group ownership doesn't really mean anything in this context, right? Shadow owns it, but nothing in the shadow. So nobody. Now you can put yourself in shadow if you wanted to be able to look at that a lot, but don't. If you have root privileges, just use root privileges. So, let me see. So because I'm not in that particular group, is this gonna work? Oops. Right. As it should be. Okay. So now, what the heck are we looking at? So if we look, you can see that, go down to Leo. What is all that? Leo $$ $6 something trash. Right? But that is, right? Like, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just a bunch of gibberish, because what that is a hash, a cryptographic hash of what your password is. It's not your password. It's a representation of your password. And there's information about that too. So the hashing algorithm is there. So Etsy shadow hashing algorithm. See. SHA-512. Oof. Yeah, there is, but good luck. SHA-512 is massive. SHA-256 is way easier because we're not talking so SHA-256 is basically 256 bits worth of SHA hashing information. SHA-512 is 512 bits of SHA hashing information. Now, SHA is a cryptographic algorithm that basically you feed it information and it spits out gibberish. But there's a key, like an actual key to a door key. And if you use that key against that hash, that gibberish out of there, you can reverse that. You can figure out what it actually was in the first place.
But the key lives on the system.
Yes.
There's a way to find the key.
Of course. Which is why physical access is everything. Right? So, here's the deal. Well, actually, no, I take that back. There isn't a key on the system because it's typically irreversible. Now you've sparked my interest. I don't know. There can't be a key on the system, though.
That's what kills me about security, that there's always a way to hack the crap.
Well, there's always there's always T and O. So, well, there's not. I mean, you're looking at the algorithm, or the techniques that are used in iPhone, which is why the whole State Department is pissy about not being able to get into every phone, right? They utilize TNO, trust no one, which basically means that it's unreversible. The hashing algorithm works in one direction only. You can't go backwards. Now, I would have to assume that these hashing algorithms work that way. But
How would the system be able to read that algorithm to know what it says if it doesn't have it?
so, and this is why it sparks my interest. I'm not sure. There used to be attacks in Windows XP called Pass the Hash, where all you would need is the hash itself, and the hash would act as your password because the system wouldn't see it one way or the other. It would just see that whatever you gave it resulted in the password, whether you gave it the password or you gave it the hash, and that would allow access. But that's been fixed for decades. So
And you're not copy and paste that hash into like
no.
the Google how to break. Is there not somebody has like a hash break?
So here's the thing about hashing algorithms like this, right? How many passwords can you get with 512 bits of entropy? Right? It's 2 to the 512, like 2 with the little exponent 512, right? That's a lot, like a lot. I mean, if you look at 32-bit IP addressing, how many IP addresses are available? Right? It was 4 billion. 4 billion. At 32-bit. At 32. We haven't run out. I mean, yes, I know. Yes. But there are entire swaths of IP addresses that are just unused. So we're running out insofar as we don't want to make more of them usable. But overall, we will eventually run out. Yes. So, but right, that's 32-bit. When we went to IPv6, which is 128 bits, how many IP addresses are available now? Yeah, it's some stupid number.
So that actually,
Yeah, if not more. I think it might be in the quadrillions.
that encryption, is that part of this operating system?
340 undecillion, or 340 billion addresses, right? So
Wow.
the fact that how many grains of rice would how many football fields could you fill up grains of rice? 340 undecillion, right? Like we don't think that big, like at all. Our brains cannot handle numbers like that. So do that 3 more times, right? And this is not just a multiple. You can't just take 340 undecillion times 4 and get what 2 to the 512 is. It's like exponentially bigger, and not just by a couple of sets of zeros or anything. Like we're talking, if you can't understand this, there's no way you'd be able to understand how many results you would end up with at 512. Like just insane. So if you want, just for funsies, there's 154 zeros in that number. Yeah. 1 comma 154 zeros, whatever that's going to be, right? Like a lot. So that's how many possible hashes you can have with SHA-512.
Would somebody create a SHA-512?
Yeah, of course.
Did somebody hack SHA-512?
Not yet. Not that we know of. Hold on.
You can create it, you can save it.
That's not true.
Well, somebody made it, so there's a way to get into it. There has to be a way to get into it remotely, right?
That's not true. Now, cryptography and master locks are different in that with a master lock, there's always a way, right? But there's because master locks only have a finite number of those little pins to be able to do that with. So you can, and as well, you tend to have a master key of some kind, right? I mean, everything that comes off that factory line can be tested with a master key or something like that, right? Now, cryptography is different in that, yes, there will always be a way to break it. But the idea behind SHA, well, and most other cryptography is that, or other cryptographic algorithms, is that the solution to that, so to hack that, you would need way more compute power than even exists in this world at this moment. So we do math so good, we can't even undo it yet. That is the idea of cryptography as it stands today. Would be a way to help figure this out. But will they even work like we're afraid they're going to work? Because yes, MIT has one. Yes, they say they can do things, but they haven't. There are no proof of concepts of breaking current cryptography. We think they can do it because of the way that quantum computers work, but we don't know that yet. So no reason to set your hair on fire just yet. Just yet. Right. But adjust my tinfoil hat. Yeah, totally.
I know we fell way off the Raptors here.
No. I mean, we're not, because it's a conversation about cryptography, though. So it's more a conversation for next semester, but still it's important here. So SHA-1, which was invented in 1995. We're working with SHA-2 at the moment, this 512-bit whatever, SHA-2. Now, SHA-1 had a few different, I guess, permutations. And what you ended up with were, crazy long hashes like that. But it was just broken. Well, okay. It was theoretically breakable in the late 90s. We had the idea of how to do it. But, as I was saying before, we didn't have the compute for it. Amazon Web Services did not exist back then, right? So now that Amazon Web Services exists and you can go rent those NVIDIA Tesla GPUs, I forget who it was, but there was a university that did it. They rented something like 1,000-something of these Tesla GPUs, let it hack away at SHA-1 for as long as they needed. I think it was like a week and a half, and they broke it. So breaking it is not what you think it is. So SHA-1, all it does is takes data and creates a hash out of it, right? That's what it does. That hash is supposedly unique. That was the whole premise of SHA-1, the whole idea. So that if you had two files, right? One file says accounting.exe, right? There's a file that contained all the accounting data and it executed a program. And then you had another file called accounting.exe. How would you tell them apart? Hashing algorithms. So you pass it through this hashing algorithm and SHA-1 spits out a result on the other end. Now, if one single bit changes, one bit, 1 0 to a 1 or 1 to a 0, you throw it through the SHA-1 algorithm again, you get a totally separate, non-identical in any way whatsoever result. And if anything was identical in either of those two hashes, it was by pure chance. So, you have these two things that are absolutely different. The way that we broke SHA-1 is that I can have two separate files like that. One bit changed, but we now have the compute to be able to add filler bits to the end of it, to the end of the modified file, and then have what's called a collision. So I can have the real file, and its hash pops out, and that hash is unique. Then I can have a modified version of that file, add a bunch of crap to the end of it, and eventually I will end up with the same exact hash. That's not what you're thinking it is, right? You can't go back from that hash and generate the file out of that. I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe you could. I don't really think you could. You'd need more compute to deal with that. So that's the only way that you break SHA-1. We don't know what the original file was, or in this case, a password. We don't know what it was. We can just make a collision. So the way that you would deal with this is that you would just find whatever password collided with this other password and use that password, and that would get you in because the hash would match. But we're protected against that with the idea called SALT. So finally, I get to bring it back to the topic at hand. There's this idea called SALT. So Leo $6, that tells us SHA-512, right? 512 bits of of hashing over here, and that was however many 150 something zeros, different possibilities. So, and then it closes off with a dollar sign, and then you see 6U24WHHN, blah, 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 to the next dollar sign. That is salt. Salt is gibberish. Literally, it means nothing. It's a random assortment of characters that is added to, notice that the third dollar sign, it says $V7/OVS4. That is your hash. That is the actual hash. And it goes and it continues on to the next line to the colon. So HU20 : right? All that together makes something unique. You would have to remove the salt from the original or from the hash to the right to be able to get what the real hash actually was, which makes SHA-512 even tougher, because you're multiplying 512 bits times however many bits that is, probably like 128 or something like that. So you're taking 2 to the 512 times 2 to the 128. So we've got even more entropy there. This password is even more unbreakable. Well, unbreakable is just a matter of time. Anyway, all of that, cryptography aside, that's what that gibberish is. In the Etchy Shadow file, when you come across gibberish, that's what that means. Algorithm, salt, hash. That's how that comes together. You do not need to know what the hash what the hash actually means, what the password is. You're not supposed to know, right? Like, that's the whole point of having a hashing algorithm, having a hash instead of a password sit there, right? That's the whole point of that. No one's supposed to know, not even the admins. The best an admin should be able to do is change the password. If any admin ever tells you that I know your password, they're a bad admin, right? Okay, maybe not a bad admin. Betty kept telling me her password. Like, what am I supposed to do, not memorize it? Right, like, it happens. I totally get that. But what I mean by that is you're never supposed to store passwords in a hashing algorithm that is reversible. It should not be reversible, ever. Group policy even has a checkbox or a policy where you can set they're reversible. Not a single federal policy, FERPA, HIPAA, PCI, DSS is not federal, but still, all of these policies that companies and universities and everybody else, the policies they run by, forbid this reversible encryption. So, long story short, not only are you not supposed to do it, in a lot of cases, it's illegal to do it. Anyway, last time the password was changed will be the next value. So 18277, so essentially never. And then you've got days the user must wait to change the password. So these are just, if you're looking at, did we do the policies? Oh, no, we haven't got, no, y'all did. In the operating systems class toward the very end, we set up some policies, and that is like the password age and all that stuff. That's all this is. This is setting how many days you need to wait for your password to change, or to force another password change. How many days before the password must be changed, like if you want that every 30 days, every 60 days, every 90 days. Days prior to a password change to alert, or password change to alert the user. So if you want to let them know 2 weeks in advance, you'll set that to 14. And then grace period, after the password expires, that the user can still change it upon login. So you can say 7 days. After your password expires, you got 7 days to change it. If you can't change it, then now root has to intervene, right? And then expiration date of the user account. So the thing about this is that all of these are in days. Yeah, that makes it really hard to deal with. And you're going to realize a lot of the stuff in some of the services that you're going to configure in the 4th semester measured in seconds. Yeah. Sorry. 86,000 something for a day. Yeah, it's a lot. Whatever. But yeah, that's where calculators come in handy. Anyhow, that's what everything is separated by colons. That's what those mean. And now look at Emma down at the bottom. What is different about Emma compared to Leo? Other than the line is really short. Emma doesn't have a password. Yeah, cool. So you cut straight to the chase. That exclamation point means there is no password set. Now, we haven't talked about this, but if I were to log out and then type in Emma, would I be able to log in as Emma? So I got a yes, I got a no, I got a no, I got a... What do y'all think?
She doesn't have a password.
Okay, so 2 yeses and a no?
She still exists.
3 yeses and a no? Anybody? Maybe?
Sure.
Okay, so 4 yeses and a no. The no has it. You won't be able to log in. Linux requires a password to log in, right? And if you look, LXD, apt, mail, LP man, root, all those other ones don't have a password. So again, no login there. No login.
So it's because of the Linux requirement.
Yes, this has nothing to do with any of the files or anything like that. Linux will not let you log into an account without a password. Of course. Most of the time, the reason that is so that you can set a temporary password or something, ABC123, and then you call up Emma and be like, all right, your account's ready, log in, and then it forces her to change the password right then and there. And the reason that paradigm exists is because you should not know her password. She will tell you her password one of these days. Yeah. Can't help that. All right. So some of those values we haven't even talked about yet, right? Like we have the expiry date and some groups and stuff. Change age. This is the last bit of it. Well, most of the last bit of it. So change. So you can set you can actually fudge the last date of password change with the D option, expire date, set her to inactive, set your minimum and maximum days for password changes, right? And that's pretty much, and then warn, capital W. How many days prior do you want to warn them about a impending password change, right? So all the stuff that we just talked about, this is how you set it. Change. So let's look at, I'll keep this help file up. Let's look at that command. Change dash capital M. What are we setting? I say 60. What does that mean? Number of days to what? So after 60, you'll force a password change? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the minimum.
Yep. Big M, so it's maximum days. Yeah. So you're basically setting the max age of the password. So your password can be 60 days old, and then whatever the trigger might be, that's what we're doing. Yeah. Yep. And then we can set, what is it? Little m2. So now what does that mean? Right. So after you change your password, so after that 60 and you change it, you got to wait 2 days before you can change it again. This will prevent people from just changing it and changing it and changing it and changing it. Now, I don't necessarily have a good reason why you would want to set that. I don't, no war story of someone doing that. People hated changing it in the first place, so I couldn't get you to change it even if I wanted you to, unless I forced you to. So, yeah, that I've never run into a situation where I needed that, but you might. And dash big E, expire date. So we've already set this. This would just be updating it. You can also do that with user mod, so you can do that either. And then dash big W7. What does that do? So what does the warn date mean? What does that do? 7 days prior to the password, or the forced password change. It'll warn you, hey, you got a week left. You got 7 days.
I got that coming on right now with my
Oh,
student.
yeah,
And then
sorry.
I'll just keep putting it on.
Yeah, I know.
The expired date,
Uh-huh.
does that go with the first command? The minus M?
The capital E. The minus capital E, and then the date.
No, I understand that, but I mean, in reference to, because you have the large M, is
Mhm.
the maximum days.
Yes, and that goes along with this value.
Yeah, so the expired date, what I'm saying in relation, because the M, you have 60 days say from today.
Uh-huh.
So what I'm trying to find out is this, the minus E, does it tie into that somehow, or is it just,
They're separate. They're totally separate options that don't really have much to do with each other. If the expired date happens before the maximum age date, you just won't change the password because your whole account's locked out. So can't log into it.
expired date is something like just when you want the account to be no longer active?
Yep. So say Emma was the interim CIO, and we know that her last day is going to be, December 30th. Now, like if it's going to be December 31st, like at the turn of the new year, we wanted that to change or whatever, we would do that January 1. Because once it is January 1 at midnight, January 1, or midnight and like 1 second, January 1, her account is locked. But these can be coordinated. But if they're not, then whichever happens first, that's the thing that you'll do. All right. Yeah, and the cool thing about Change is that you can just run it. You can just run it by itself, and then it'll ask you question by question by question by question. So it's a little easier because it'll ask you English questions and not just make you ask the help file for everything else. So, yeah. So you can group mod to modify groups, but there's really nothing to do other than set a password to your group. So you can do that. It's very uncommon, but you can if you want to. It's really not a whole new... Oh, you can rename the group. And then -P will set your password. But doing any kind of option where you type the password in the command line is actually a really bad idea. Why do you think that might be? If I did... C -P. Oh wait. -P. Let's call it. Why would that be bad? And this goes for any command that might ask for a password in the command line.
Everybody knows the password.
What's that?
Everybody knows the password.
Well, true, but for anybody in the CIO group, you would tell them what the password is so they can log into it.
You have to be sudo to log into it.
How about this? Look at the history. Bad idea. So a lot of times, I don't know if it's going to work. I assume it's not, but yeah, because it's going to ask what the value is at the end. Yeah, it's not going to work. A lot of times, the application, if they want you to type in the command line, will add an option for request a password instead of provide the password, and then it'll ask you in the next thing, and it'll blank it out, and it won't be part of the history. So if anything is ever asking you to type a password in the command line directly as a command, don't do it. Bad practice. Bad practice. All right. Yeah. Sure enough. Sure enough. Now, there may be a time when you run into a user. A lot of times these users might be service accounts where you would need to change the primary group. Yeah, I mean, if there's like a communal NetAdmin account or something like that, you might want to make its primary user group NetAdmins, so it'll have all the privileges of NetAdmins, all the rest of you'll use the new group command for that. So whatever user you specify, if it's you, then you can just type it like that. Otherwise, here's some help with it. Oh, not now. That's it. So new group, user, group. Or if you're just doing yourself, you don't need anything else. Just new group, group. Let me see. Yep. Oh yeah. So if you ever delete a user, the thing about that is that the user's home folder doesn't get deleted. Any of the files they created don't get deleted. Any of the group associations they have, or their group doesn't get deleted. And any kind of ownership they have. While Emma might be deleted, what ID is Emma? Yeah. It will no longer say Emma, like especially for a file that Emma created. Emma, right? User owner, group owner. It'll just say 11111111. So an easy way to fix that, would be to create a user. Let's say you just already got rid of Emma. You could recreate Emma using the same user ID and group ID, but, right, I mean, the other way to do that is to use the find command and find every file owned by 1111, group owned by 1111, and then execute a command that just does the chmod root or something like that. That way you change everything to root. Now root owns all of Emma's stuff. But you can do it like this. Find in the root of the file system, so everything, look on the whole system, a group or any file associated with the group netadmins. So you just swap that with Emma. And anything that Emma group owns, it'll find. And then you can do the -exec exec and to do chmod root, something like that. So anyway, so same with, you can group delete, but same thing, right? The group will be deleted, but the group ID will remain. And anything that group ID owned still owns. If you need to change your password by yourself, just type in passwd. If you need to change your password to somebody else, passwd and then the username. Easy. Well, yeah. And now Emma doesn't have an exclamation point anymore. She's got junk. All right. So ulimit. Whoa. So ulimit, you can set quotas. Things like you can only use so much disk space, stuff like that. No of it. It's not. You're not going to get any questions about it. And if you do, it's going to be the soft resource or hard resource limit. So just know your S and your H. That's really all you need to know about it. So you can do a lot of stuff. This is how you limit your accounts. User limit is what that is. So yeah, like look at that bottom option. -T, the maximum number of threads. This is how you slow down users. This is how you prevent them from being able to use up all the resources on a single system. So say you've got a 24-core processor, but you only want, and that would usually translate to 48 threads, right? So you can create a user and add a ulimit to that user of T4, -big T4. And that'll give him 4 threads to work with, or 2 cores. Well, no, tons of processes. What the threads means is that you can only have 4 threads, which means 4 awake running processes at a time.
You said that shows the number of user processes.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, good God, that would be bad. Well, I don't know. I guess not. I mean, give them like 50 or 100 or something like that. They could run a desktop, not much else. So you got to be careful with that. Yeah, lots of testing before -U. Lots of testing. Because you'll hit that limit. Like you'll hit a limit, and then it's like you can't open this, whatever, and then they're gonna call you. So while you totally could, -T is probably safer. That way, what they're running will continue to run, and they can add as many as many processes as they want, but it will just have a cap of processing power. So, yeah, -T might be safer to just blanket add to people. So, anyhow. Oh, cool. Look at that. I didn't even know about this one. -E, little e, the maximum scheduling priority, the nice value. So you can force all of your regular users to have a nice value of plus 10, right? That way, system processes and any kind of admin processes always run at a higher priority, meaning if someone's going to slow down, it's going to be your users. They will slow down. So as long as you have a good explanation for why you're setting these limits, you can set them.
That was for what? All that was for what?
U limit. Yeah.
Limits.
Yeah. So if you type in U limit by itself, you can see my limits are. Yeah. Unlimited power. Yeah. All right. So roots, UID, and group ID are 0. Just know that. That'll probably come up. One of those wonky questions that doesn't seem apparent until you get asked. User accounts must have a password set to be able to log in. Fun fact. Lock an account with password. Oh, this needs to be font changed. Password L or user mod big L. So you can do it either way. What do y'all think?
I think you lost me so hard on encryption.
Yeah, I was almost better than
Ah,
that motorcycle.
yeah.
Kind of messed that up. We were rolling pretty good.
I'll
And
catch up
algorithms. It's like, oh,
Monday.
Yeah. Just algorithms, really, really big math that we can't figure out. So that whole 15 minutes of me going off on that tangent, just summarize it that way. Really hard math. So hard that computers can't even figure it out in a timely fashion. But, yeah. Well, give it a go. Let me know if there's anything you need.
what's our lab look like?
Yeah. It's that time.
Hit the lab. Bring the test up. No, I'm joking.
Well, I don't mind talking about it. It's not like that's not hidden stuff or anything. So it's going to be exactly what we covered today. So you're going to create Jan, make sure her home folder is there, give her a custom user ID of that, give her a group association of Wheel. This is in CentOS, by the way. So the pseudo group in Ubuntu is called Wheel in CentOS. I'm sure there's some 1984 explanation as to why they named it Wheel. I don't know that answer. Give her a password. Create a new group called Studio. Add Jan to the group. And then, yeah, make sure to add the little A option. Don't disturb her current primary or secondary groups. Right? Because she's in Jan, she's in Wheel, and now you want her in Studio. Don't erase the other two. And then log in as Jan. And that new group, it's temporary. Once you reboot or once you log out, it goes back, and you'll want that to be Studio. The reason you want that to be Studio is when you create files, Studio will group own them. This is an easy way. We were talking about the set GID bit last time. If you don't want that to be permanent, you can use new group to do that with. That way anybody else in Studio can at least read those files. And then this is basically just asking you to figure out what command I'm talking about, right? Run a command that shows the custom user ID and all group associations for Jan. Ooh, how do you do that? Run a command that will list 3 files created above and show the group owner. Run a command to create a file that will prevent future logins from all regular users. You know, actually, I didn't cover that one. So you guys are going to get a freebie if you pay attention. If you actually paid attention thus far and watched to the very end of the video. ID. Shows you every user, every group that you're associated to, your user ID, group ID, and and groups. Yeah. ID. That'll do it for you. So, I don't know why that's not in the notes. I don't know how I skipped that. Maybe I just skipped over it. Maybe not. Huh, well, it's ID. Anyhow, and then run a command that locks Jan's account. So same here. Alice, home folder, password. Set her expiry date to January 1st, 22. Oh, wait a minute. I know, man. Look at that. See what happens? I'm going to swap that to 2021 and that to 2022. So just in case you run into that, I'll change that in a sec. Hospitality group, custom group ID. Add Alice to it, but don't break her current groups, right? Same kind of stuff. Throw some grep in there. Password account, expiry information. Group associations. Group ID of the hospitality group. So nothing too terrible, and you got a freebie. As far as this goes, right? Same basic stuff. Write the command to lock Roy. Write the command to add Bill to the sudo group. Write the command to create a new user named Betty. Oh, yeah, okay. Easy enough. Create the accounting group. Change Betty's password. Yep. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah, so you got to go in and dig in and figure out what 17897 is. Ooh. That's probably the toughest one on the whole thing. You created 5 users. Oh, yeah, this one's a thinker. But we talked about this. Right? If you delete users 1003 and 1004, whatever they were associated with, what are you going to do? If you create a new user, what's it going to be? Don't yell it out.
Oh, okay.
I don't want another freebie. Only one freebie per week, okay? Right? So you're just going to reuse 1003, you're going to go to 1005, you're just going to skip to 1006, or you're just going to be 1111. I don't know. What are you going to be? See? 3 licks, man. That's all you get. See, I want to see fish. Y'all can leave. We are done. This is extra. So, if you want to see fish. Well, see? All right. All right. So in Ubuntu, you have to install a PPA. So PPAs are basically non-official repositories. So this is not something that you want to do on any server that you actually care about and want to stand for, 10 years. Nope, it's the wrong one. Subscribe. So the way that you do that is add apt repository, or apt add, sudo apt. Yes, but you have to install VirtualBox guest editions and kind of go through a few hoops to make that work. But it would work, except for the fact that, well, no, it would.
Like in a real life situation, is that even possible? Or would you even do that? I guess not.
Oh, I wonder if you could do it like this. Interesting. I wonder if there's a way to do it. There might be. Nah. I mean, in situations like this, I would just type it out. But if it's really huge, you'd need guest additions to be able to copy and paste. In my opinion, though, what I would do, I would just set up a host adapter so I can SSH into my VM and then copy and paste it. I'll show you what that means if you want to actually see it. Basically, a remote control session to my VM instead of directly accessing it like this. And then you can just copy and paste into your Windows terminal, and it'll send that stuff to your VM. It's a workaround, not a real solution, but it'll work. Works just the same. Do do do, go fish shell. Do 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 do. Sudo update. Nope. Apt update. Install fish.
Can you go over what the difference is between upgrade and update is again? 'Cause I'm pretty sure I asked you, but I still have no idea what the difference is.
So all update does is updates the list of software. So it basically lets you know whether or not you have updates. Upgrade actually acts on that list. So it says, oh, I see update has this new list of updates or whatever. Upgrade will go and say, all right, well, time to go download that one and that one and that one and that one and install them. So update doesn't actually change your system. Upgrade does. Will upgrade those packages to a new version number. So it has to do with version numbers. Upgrade will find the new version numbers, or I'm sorry, update will find the new version numbers. Upgrade will make the new version number the current version number. So it'll go out and install those updates.
Why do you gotta put the terminology on that?
What do you mean?
Saying update suggests that it will update.
It does update something. It updates the list. Yeah, I know.
So is there a reason why you wouldn't just do upgrade if you want to update your system?
Because update doesn't happen automatically except for on boot. So if you haven't rebooted your system in the last 4 days or whatever, you won't know that you have new packages, so upgrade won't know what to do. So update is important.
So you update then upgrade?
Correct. Yep. I think there's a way to do it though, altogether. Oop. Well, actually, let's do this. Open up Fish. Now I got my new terminal. Yay! Check that out. I just typed A. And it reminds me of all the things. And they're all the things that I have ran before, as well as all of the things that start with A. Gives you an idea about what they all are, how big they are, all kinds of cool stuff. So apt.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's super nice. It is super nice. Ooh, what? Have I been doing it the hard way this whole time? What was it? Edit sources? Oh, get out of here. Oh my God.
I think you're still recording, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily need y'all to know this stuff, but I mean,
I'll take it.
yeah.
I feel like there's such an advantage to seeing what else is available in command typing other than
Oops.
command. Sorry.
What's that now?
I think there's just such an advantage of seeing what else you can do
Mhm.
instead of the one path you've always taken.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
Like LL, this long, just typing LL, that saves so much time. You're doing it 1,000 times.
yeah, and the cool thing about this is that like if it's not a command, it's red.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so check that out. So nothing. Oh, su is a command. D is not. Sudo is though. And then I mean, and it's fast, man. Fish is fast.
Wouldn't that be easier to learn all this stuff, right? If you had that? Because I would, while my eyes up again, I'm missing that big picture.
Yeah. So I'm kind of two minds of this, right? Like what I don't want is for you guys to become reliant on something that you're not going to have. Like you do not get to go onto some server that you're administering now and just install Fish from some random old PPA. Like most of the companies that deal with this stuff now have policies. Any good company that respects security will have policies for installing software, and that policy will basically say you don't get to do PPAs. You get to install it from Universe and Multiverse from Ubuntu. You get to install it from the main repo and possibly EPEL for CentOS, And that policy does not include extra repos. So Fish comes from an extra repo. Maybe in the LTS, Ubuntu will add Fish to its main to its main repository. But until that day, you're not going to have access to it. And then God forbid you go to CentOS, and that'll never happen. I mean, CentOS 9, maybe. And so,
But as us learning these
Yes, right. And that's the other mind of it. Like, fish is helpful as heck, man. Yeah.
I saw why I wasn't getting what I was getting
Yeah.
because of a freaking K.
Mhm.
Dude, come on.
So,
Mine was a small letter versus a capital letter.
yeah.
But if you
Right.
don't have with the fish, you can see exactly why or what is going on. You don't keep continuing to do the same thing again.
So one of the things that Bash doesn't do that Fish does is when you get into a command and you start to type that dash and you're like, what was the letter again? Bash will not give it to you. It will not show you. I take that back. Let me check. Yeah. Oh, it'll only give you the BSD style, which may or may not be helpful to you. Right. And so when you do Fish. Oop. It does them all.
That should be tab. That's what it
Just dash.
is. Just dash it.
Yeah, B is grayed out, sort of, so it's like I might want to do B or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's just all.
It is super helpful. It is definitely 100% helpful.
I'm probably gonna use that
And that's fine.
because
What?
while I'm learning to do this stuff.
Yeah.
At least I can see what other commands you could possibly do.
Right.
Because damn,
Yeah. All right. So just heed the advice.
help, right?
Yeah.
That's help without having help.
Basically.
So
Yeah. The advice, though, do not become reliant on Fish.
yeah.
Do not. There are other shells that you can use. Zish will actually do this. Z shell, ZSH. It can do a lot of this stuff as well, but you've got to set it up. Fish already comes pre-installed with all this stuff. So just do not become reliant on it. If you do, you're going to be in a world of hurt when all you got is Bash. So, but I mean, I can totally see the usefulness there. I mean, if you type user add and a few options every single time, a million times or whatever using Fish, you'll probably remember it in Bash, or at least you'll remember how to do help and be able to string it together really quickly.
I feel like
And
I'm gonna install this on all my VMs and have it so whenever I'm doing something I don't know what the hell is
yeah,
going on.
just type Fish and try it again.
Fish.
Yep. Now I think that's a responsible way to do it. When you need the extra help, then type Fish and try it again.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that.
I'm okay with that. Seriously. I mean, I use this on all my machines now. Not because, to be honest with you, yeah, I do need the help a lot of times. But
There's so much.
it really is pretty friendly. It's about as friendly as I've ever seen a terminal be.
Hour and a half for 7 days straight for a month, and you
Yeah.
don't even get a quarter of the way with how much crap there is. There's so much crap.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the big stuff, but there's Dash K.
Yeah. And that'll get you.
C,
And it'll get you every time.
different stuff.
So use Fish. It can definitely help. But please don't become reliant on it. The end.